Hello, my 3D printer friends. I'm here with three of my favorite things: a hot coffee, a cool model, and you. I had such a cool time building the original Toys 3D dinosaur skeleton on my Creality CRM4 that I just had to go ahead and print his alive version. I did this on the Creality CRM4. That is the main body parts in brown. It took 3 full days of printing, and I can't believe how perfect it printed, scaled up to 200%. Sometimes a modeler will make a model and only test it at the size that they made it. However, when you scale up that model, you will find that there are overhangs that become too big and the print quality degrades because of it. For example, there may be an overhang that prints with no supports at 100% scale, but at 150% scale, suddenly that overhang becomes too big and the print quality degrades. I'm happy to report I had none of those issues at a whopping 200% on this model. However, I did want some multicolor, so what I did was go into Bamboo Studio and paint this upper palette, which is the teeth. It goes inside the mouth like this. This gives me a red upper palette and black teeth. I did that on the Bamboo Lab X1C. And I went ahead and did the same thing on the lower jaw. I used the fill tool and made the teeth black, and I did the lower jaw in a lighter color brown so that it will look just slightly different than the upper jaw. Both of these came so cool, and I'm really excited that I did it this way. It added a lot of print time. These pieces took like 5 hours to print, but they're worth it. There's one more multicolor part, and that is the eyeball. I just did the black. Now you could just take a paint pen and just color the black as opposed to like an hour and a half doing filament swaps for the eyeballs. But for me, I just went ahead and did it with a Bamboo Lab P1S to print those eyeballs for me. Let's go ahead and assemble it. The first thing you need to do is get these break-off boards out. You can just go ahead and pop them off. Be careful, you might make holes if you're too aggressive or if your filament is too hard. If you find you're not liking how they break off, go ahead and use a snipper. But don't use cheap snippers. Use good snippers, like RUI tool snippers. These are professional grade snippers. They actually make like a standard grade snipper. It's not quite as thin, the blade, and a professional grade snipper where the blade itself is super thin. And this will prevent you from snapping these pieces off, leaving burrs and leaving little chips or doing any kind of damage to your model. You could also break it off by hand and then use the snipper to clean up those little tiny nips. And with the precision of this tiny, tiny, tiny little thin little tip, you'll get a lot closer and have a lot cleaner cut than you would with the kind that come with your printer. I'll link these in the description. If you really want to go crazy, you can use one of these detail sanders. It's a little sponge basically with a piece of Velcro on it, and you can change the sandpaper to keep it fresh or to change the grit so that you have either a fine grit or a rough grit. It's one of my favorite tools for 3D printing. Let's go ahead and put it together. For this model, I'm going to use E6000. It's a thick, strong glue, but it cures slow enough to allow models to hold in place, but still be able to adjust them and get that correct positioning before it cures. Let's start by snapping this connector that connects the main body to the neck first. This way you don't have to worry about breaking any other parts while pushing it on, because it could be really hard. A push and a twist is usually enough, but if it's not, use a double-sided mallet like this. And just tap it into place. These mallets are heavy, yet they are rubbery on the end, so it's not like hitting it with a typical hard hammer that will break your print. Next up, snap the neck on. There you go. After the neck, we are going to push the legs on. These will also be pretty tight. You're going to want to get your palm behind that leg and push it and rock it into place. Next leg. There it is. We now have to do the arms. They're going to snap one on each side. There's one. I put my palm behind the piece and snap it into place. You should not need your little helper, but if you do, just be real gentle because you don't want to snap or break the outer shell of this model. But this is why we print in 3 walls. It makes it stronger. Next up, we are going to glue the jaw. I am going to E6000 inside here. E6000 is a really strong glue. You don't need a ton of it. Be careful, it could be stringy and it can be runny. Let's glue that upper palate, the roof of the mouth, into the jaw here. Just going to wiggle it around a little so it sticks good. And because it's a thick glue, you'll see it's already good. And we've got our mouth with our teeth. Next up is the eyes. They are labeled behind them left and right. Be sure to fit the correct eye into the correct slot. You can go ahead and snap them into place. They should stay without glue. Of course, if you want, you could have put some glue in those little tabs to make sure they don't come out. You would simply put a drop of E6000 into each tab. And there you go. Both eyes are glued in. The mouth is glued in. None of this is ever coming off. We will snap our jaws together. You snap it here and then you close it. There you go, just like this, and now you go ahead and push the jaw together. And you've got your T-Rex head, who looks absolutely amazing. Teeth and red palette and multicolor eyes and everything. Fantastic. One of the coolest parts is the toes. I did them in black on a Bamboo Lab P1S, and they make the feet look absolutely fantastic. You will want to glue those in. Just a bit of E6000 in the hole. Again, not a lot. This is a really strong glue. Press the toes in. They are labeled left and right. Push them in good. It's a thick glue, so when you push it in, it'll spread out a bit, and the part will seal and sit properly. And now you'll have feet that look like this. While we are here, I will put some foam pads on the feet. These foam pads keep the model from sliding around or scuffing your table. Put enough so that you don't create any high spots that could cause the model to rock. These are like $1 at the dollar store, so no need to cheap out on them. Now I can put it down on a smooth surface and it won't slide around or scrape that surface. We do have one more difficult part to put on, and that is this completed head. We have to snap it into place. Right here, you'll see there are notches and there are bumps, and we have to go ahead and push this on. Be super careful not to break anything. One thing to note, unlike the skeleton version, it's difficult to reopen the mouth if you close it because there are no holes to push through to pull that mouth open. So if you do close the mouth, it looks absolutely awesome, but it's harder to open. So like I just did, I didn't close it all the way to allow me to pull on that jaw and open it some more. Finally, flip your model over line up its belly piece, take this clip, it fits both ways, and snap it into the belly. Of your dinosaur. You might find it easier to get it started by tapping it in with a little helper to the first piece, then placing it over the hole, then tapping it the rest. If you think you've got any stringies, just grab a heat gun from a low-cost heat station and just very gently go over the surfaces, and those little tiny stringies will literally melt away and disappear. You're doing it very briefly from a distance because we're not going to melt the model. We are just melting the little wisps, and the little wisps will melt so much faster than any real plastic will. So don't worry too much about it. Just be careful and don't spend any time on one spot. Just quick passes and you'll see those wisps literally disappear right before your eyes. All my tools are linked in the description. And there we have it. The living T-Rex is done and it's absolutely fantastic. After seeing how cool the skeleton was, I thought there's no way the living one can outdo this. But holy cow, it's absolutely fantastic. The lower jaw is elegoo brown. The whole body is giant arm brown. So we did an assortment of printers and materials here and came out with an absolutely fantastic model that I just totally love. And let's see if we can stand it up with the T-Rex skeleton. We sure can, and it looks so cool. I'm not affiliated with this modeler at all. I just thought this was a cool model, and I wanted to share it with you. If you print one of these models, please tag me at 3D Fundown, or at Greg Adventure, or at 3D Rundown, or tag all three. Speaking of, I'm Greg Adventure, and you're on 3D Fundown.